are some behaviors we have as we get older, and we may not even be aware of them. But these are 6 behaviors that I think we need to ditch as we get older. Hi, everyone. My name is Susan, and welcome to my channel. So, the first behavior I think we should ditch as we get older is to stop criticizing ourselves, either in front of other people, putting ourselves down, or just when we're by ourselves. Maybe we look in the mirror and we think, oh my gosh, another wrinkle, gotten older, gotten heavier, all these things that work on our minds. It's basically self talk that we need to ditch. We need to recognize and embrace the fact that we're getting older. And yes, these are some of the things that we deal with, and we can't criticize ourselves because of them, because it's just not healthy. Or maybe we think back to when we were parents of young children and we think of things we could have or should have done better. But you can't beat yourself up over things like that because, first of all, there's nothing you can do about it. And secondly, maybe you forget about the circumstances that were surrounding the fact that when you were a parent, maybe things occurred that you had no control over, and this was the way it was, and you did your best job. So we need to learn to ditch some of these negative things with our thinking. The second behavior I think we should ditch is tying your worth into how youthful you look. We see ads all the time on TV and in magazines of anti-aging creams and things like that, but they always seem to show women who look to be about 20 years old. And I think that's just ridiculous. Again, we need to embrace the fact that we're getting older, and there are things that we can do to look younger, but it's not tying our value into how young we look. And we certainly don't have to look too far to see the effects of things like plastic surgery, because all we have to do is look at celebrities, and a lot of them have really completely changed their look. They're kind of unrecognizable, some of them, to me. I'll look at them online and think, who is that? And then you'll realize that they just don't look the same as they used to. And there are certainly a lot of celebrities, I think, in my opinion, that have had plastic surgery that, in my opinion, I think they would have been better off just allowing themselves to age gracefully and not to have to undergo surgery to continue to have that youthful look. We need to get to a point where we believe that a woman's beauty is not dependent on how young she looks, especially in her 60s, 70s, or even 80s. There's so much more to beauty than the physical aspect of it. And the next behavior I think we should ditch is thinking about style and self-care, that they don't matter anymore as we get older. To tie into the previous step, don't stop caring about how you look. And I don't mean to go to any extreme, as I mentioned before, but let me ask you a question. If someone asked you to describe your personal style, what would you say? How would you describe yourself? Would you be chic or classic? Would you be boho or maybe minimalist? I mean, there are certain looks that I think we have, certain persona that we put out to the world. And for me personally, I think more of a classic look. I like neutral colors pretty much in wardrobe. Actually, in decorating my home also, I love neutrals. But more classic styles, more timeless styles, personally, for me. But maybe you are more outgoing and you like more of a boho look, free flowing, bright colors, you know. We all have a certain look, and I think that's part of our persona and how we project ourselves into the world. Because, we don't want to go out every day wearing sweatpants and a hoodie. I mean, I don't think. And wearing a nice outfit certainly makes you feel more confident. I know for me, when I am wearing some nice clothing, a nice outfit, I really feel better and more confident about myself. So that really helps. And the same thing with your self care routine. You need to take on a good skincare routine. And, wearing sunscreen, of course, is the number one most important thing. It helps with anti aging, of course, and skin cancer and things like that that we need to avoid as much as possible. So, wearing a good sunscreen is very important. Um, as one who has had skin cancer, because I'm very fair, I've had skin cancer from the top of my head to my ankle and everywhere in between. So I'm very aware of that, and I realize how important it is. And of course, we also need good moisturizers, cleansers, foundations, things like that that are good and healthy for our skin. And, when you go out in the world, if you put on a little bit of makeup or even just some lipstick, it can certainly help boost your mood, make you feel better, put a little color on your face. And I just think that's really important. The fourth step I think we need to ditch as we get older is carrying bitterness. There's nothing positive to say about this one. It's just so negative. It can lead to stress and anxiety and all kinds of negative thinking. And, that plays a role on our physical health. It really does. So we have to be really careful about carrying this around, and we need to really ditch it. We really need to work on getting rid of these bitter, negative feelings that we may have. Another part of this is to forgive. I think the act of forgiveness is very powerful. And as we get older, we don't want this bitterness to overtake us. It's just so not healthy, and it's just full of negativity. The fifth behavior that we need to ditch as we get older, I think, is regret. Now, I think regret becomes more prominent as we age, and I think it's because we're getting older and we have more of life behind us, and we think about things in our past and think about the regrets that we may have, things that we didn't do, things we could have or should have done. And I think we need to stop dwelling on these things so much, because I am certain that we do, and I'm certain we do too much. I personally do have some regrets, but they're a more constructive kind of regret. For example, I wish my mom was still around, because I would love to talk to her more, ask her more questions about her life and the family, about her upbringing. I don't know, I feel like I was kind of a selfish kid, and I never really asked a whole lot about her life. I mean, she volunteered some information certainly, but there are questions I have today as an older person that I really I I I think about, and I wish she was around. I think a lot of it is because I'm getting older myself, and I think about my mom when she was my age, and things that I wish I could have asked her if she was still around. So those are the kind of regrets I have. But there's a more of a constructive kind of regret. It's the destructive kind of regret that you have to be careful of, because you can't change anything. You can't take it all back. And you just have to learn to move forward and not carry the burden of regrets. In this last number 6 behavior that I think we should ditch as we're getting older is believing that our best years are behind us. Because personally speaking, if I thought that, I would be walking around every day feeling sad and depressed. And I don't want that. I don't think you want that either. The advances of medicine are incredible, and we should be really grateful for that. And we should really appreciate and be grateful that we are living in this beautiful world at this particular time. And we need to look ahead with joy. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time.